What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we are going to build tic-tac-toe game using JavaScript, HTML and CSS, and the functionality is just like what you are seeing in the screen here. Like if you click like this and all this kind of thing working from one part to another, and now you see it is telling us here player X1, and now you can click here and reset the entire game and start playing again. And with the code and a lot of things, I know you will love it, and it will give you the entirety of what you really need to understand about JavaScript. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Actually, if you can see in this side here, we have built out the user interface part of it, and I'm just going to show you the JavaScript part of it, like the functionality, how it can work. Like when you click here, it can be able to behave according to the way we want it supposed to behave. And for the code of all the functionality that is working right now, the code is here. Like the HTML is just some simple HTML design, and these ones represent the rows which are here. Actually represent the rows. Then here we have our reset button down here, and if you can see closely on our on click, we have given some functions here, and these functions we are going to make sure that we create them also in the JavaScript part. That is actually what we are going to do. And here also we have the CSS part of it. Like we covered all the CSS part of the styling and everything. And if you really need the code, I'll just leave the link in description below so that you can be able to get the styling part, the HTML and CSS part of it. Then the JavaScript we're going to put all along together. So here, this is our JavaScript file, and the JavaScript file is completely empty, as you can see. The first thing we are going to do is to create a function. Okay, first we are going to create a function, and this function we are going to call it my function, just like that. And actually the reason we are naming it like this is majorly because we have already given this name as the specific name that we have in our HTML there. So that's why like we needed to also have the same kind of name, so to speak. So now what we are going to do is we are going to set DOM to all the boxes or input fields that we have. So now let's just write a comment here. I setting DOM to all boxes or input fields, so to speak. Input fields. And if we're talking about input fields, we're actually talking about what is going to go in these empty places here. So what we are going to start with here you can use let or var, it doesn't really matter. I know like var is kind of mostly ignored nowadays, but we are majorly just using it because so that like the variable can be accessible like in all level of the functions that we are going to actually come across. That's why we are just using it, like nothing really serious about it. So yeah, the agent we have B9, and B here simply means box kind of thing. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, up to box 9. You can start from 0, no problem. It depends with how you count it. And this is just like declaring a variable that is going to take like this box from this box to this box. And if we are to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that is why we actually declared it up here. So let's start with box 1, which is actually the position for box 1, and all we are going to do is we are going to say document, okay, document dot get element by id. Our id name that we have given there is actually called b1. Okay, then here we need the value of that specific id, and this actually works for all the other boxes. So that's why I'm just going to like copy them like this, and instead of like continuously doing the same thing again and again, I'm just going to change the value, and that actually makes it a little bit easier for us like to run through it and everything, just like to make it work easy for us to be able to like maybe get through things. So yeah, that is that. Let me go through it and I will show you the end product of it. So yeah, so now done like this according to the way we want it actually to be. And now what we are going to do from here is that the major thing that we are going to focus on is we are going to define the buttons. Like suppose let me say B1, okay, which is for this is specific box here, box 1 here, and this box is also going to act like a button, okay, like B1 BTN, which actually represent the box, then B2, sorry, B2, BTN, B3, B4, B5, B6, okay, they're actually going with the same thing, B7, BTN up to B9, yeah, just like this. Then after this, like we need to go through the boxes, okay, we need to go through all the buttons together, and we are going to give it functionality. Like first of all we need to select all the buttons, then after selecting all these buttons here, then when we are working on the functionality, now we will completely focus on only the variables that we have declared or defined, so to speak. So here suppose let me say we are dealing with B1 BTN here, which is the first button here, okay, then we'll say this button is equal to document, okay, dot get element, and this id is going to also be the same id that we used up there, which is b1, okay. We say here we have b1, so to speak, like that, okay, that this is the name of our id, and this works similarly like what we did earlier, okay. So here we have b2, yeah, just like this. So now like this, we have selected all our buttons, and at the same time we have selected all our boxes here. And if you can see, the box is even the button itself. You can see here the box is the button, the box is the button, all of them like that. So each box represents a button. That's why you can see we are selecting here similar values, like the same value we are selecting here is the same value we are selecting here, despite the fact we are giving it a different variable names, but we are selecting the same values. You see, it is entirely going to be based on the functionality that we are going to actually come across with. Then now we have selected all this, we have selected this one, we have selected that one. What are we going to do with what we selected? So the first thing that we need to do is this. We are going to check if a player X won or not. And after when we check that, like for example, if player X won, then all that we are going to do is to disable, like we are going to disable all the other fields on winning of one player. Like if one player win, then we are going to disable all the other field which actually doesn't have anything to do with that winning, and that will apply to all the other fields which actually has that same whatever functionality, so to speak. So we are going to start with this. So let's first give a comment here and say check if player x1 and disable, okay, on the other fields. You can say fields or buttons, it doesn't really matter, okay. So yeah, that is it. And now we're going to say if, okay, like that, and we're going to say if, and we'll say b1, which is representing button 1, is equal to x, okay, or b2, actually b1 is equal to, because here we are checking like x capital and x small letter, and that is actually the major aspect of it here. We're checking both x capital and x small letter. If b1 is equal to that is specific, then like we'll say okay, now b1 is being occupied by x, And if b2 have the same kind of functionality, then we'll also give it to it. Like if b2 has the same functionality, which means like if b2 has x and both like, yeah, if b2 has like same small x and big x at the same time, then also we'll give that functionality to b2, that b2 is now occupied by x. Then it also applies to b3. you know if b3 has the same functionality, then now we'll say okay, it also happens, because how it works in tic-tac-toe is that you have like, you can play, if all of these things match, then you win. If all of this match from this row here, you also win. And if horizontal like this match or horizontal like this match, then you also win. We need to create something that will bring that functionality into reality, and that is actually majorly what we are focusing on here, if you can see. And now with this, let's just close it here, I think. Let me hope all is well. That comes from there. Yeah, we need to remove this here, and then we need to give this one this here. So where is the problem here? Yeah, I think that is that. Yeah, now we have checked this, and now what we are going to do is we are going to say document, okay, dot get element by id. Going to get element by id, and what is the id of that element? The id of that element is going to be called print. But first of all, let's check, okay, let's check exactly where is that print in our HTML here, so that you can be able to see what exactly we are doing. Okay, yeah, you see this id here, you see this id. This id here is the id that we are actually presenting there. This is the id we are presenting in that side when we say print. It is actually this id, and whatever value that we are going to put here, suppose let me say something just here like this and save it. Okay, you see it's written down here, you see, and this is where we are going to we are going to show like if x1 or if y1 or anything. And now what we are going to do here is like to change the value of something that is going to be inside this specific tag here, so to speak. So yeah, let's go back. And now here we are actually grabbing that specific print, so to speak, and we are going to say dot inner html like this, and we are going to say, okay, we are going to say player or player. Okay, we are going to say player x1 like this. Okay, then after this, that is all that we need to change actually there when this specific event happened. Now what we need to focus on is, like we illustrated earlier, we are going to disable all the other buttons. You see, like suppose button 4 here, we just say dot disable. Like here now, if this event happens successfully like this, so we don't need any other button to be like to be there, so all to be clickable, so to speak. So all we are going to do is disable all the other buttons. Okay, all we are going to do is just disable all the other buttons and focus on what really like matters, so to speak. So in order just to make it easy for us, let's just do the same thing that we did. I think we have 6 buttons, yeah, like that. All these buttons, we have to disable them in order for us like to be able to work with whatever. Then one thing that we are going to also do is that from button 1, the color of the style is going to change red. Button 1, button 2, button 3, and yeah, button 1, button 2, and button 3, the styles are going to change red. That is it. So like suppose we say button 1 here is equal to style, okay, is equal to style dot color, which is going to give us red. Okay, the style is going to give us red. Then button 2 is going to do the same thing, and button 3 is going to do the same thing. You see, now like this, like when that event happened, then all these buttons are going to turn red, representing that these are actually the buttons where this event occur, so to speak. Now after that, okay, after our if condition, then we'll come down here and we'll say else if the condition is different as opposed to what we just said, like else if it is b1 and b4, like we are trying to check in different way now. Like, suppose this is b1, right? b2, b3. Now we are saying if it is b1, b4, or b7 here, okay, b1, b2, or b1, b4, or b7 here, then we want that exact thing also to happen, you see. So suppose we'll say if it is b1 here specifically, which is going to be x like this, or b1 is going to give you that, if it is the one which is like that, and let's just say, yeah, and b2, suppose if b2, no, not b2, is b4, sorry for that, b4, because we are actually checking for the horizontal part of it, and the vertical part of it instead of horizontal part of it, so to speak. So yeah, now x, and same before to that, and that also applies to if b, I think it's b7, yeah, b7 is that and that. Now with this, like, there's one thing that you can actually see here in the common ground is that, like, we are checking both for capital and for small letter x, you see. So now if this is actually what happened, then we want something else to happen. Oh, sorry, we have something else that is just somewhere. So let me say, suppose this is x and that is big S. Yeah, that is, yeah, that is that. So like that, yeah, now it is okay. So yeah, like that, and there's really nothing much new to do. The only thing we are going to do is repeat ourselves with the same thing, which means we'll come here and say the same thing, like document dot, what I'm supposed to do, get element by ID, something of that kind. Then the ID is the same, going to be the ID that we used, and that ID is print, okay, like that. Then we are going to say dot inner HTML. That is exactly what we need. We actually wanted it to change. Then in our HTML here, we are just going to say player X. Here we are still focusing on player X. Okay, player X1, like this. Then we also have to pass through the same scenario. But here, because we have mix of buttons, we are going to disable button 2, button 3, button 5, button 6, and button 8. You see, then button 9, those are the buttons that we are going to disable. So let's get into it. Like here we're going to say like that. Then the buttons which are actually involved in that specific kind of like functionality, we are going to change all of them to look red in order just to identify that, yeah, they are the one which are actually included there. And then instead of repeating myself, I'm just going to copy that one up there instead of typing it. Don't actually do what I'm doing, because coding along can make you to understand it more better compared to like if you just copy something, and yeah, that is it. So here 4, we have 4, and we have 7, so to speak. Yeah, that is that. So let's also continue with the same functionality, so to speak. We will say else if, Okay, else if now here what we are going to entirely focus on is if, okay, if B7, which is actually representing box 7, box 8, okay, box 7, box 8, and box 9, which is actually from down here, if these three boxes are all equal to x, then we are also going to say x1. Then after this, we'll do the same thing, okay? So here, I'm just going to fill in for this and this, okay? Then we are going to code along one of these, and I will fill in the other one in order to save time, so to speak. So let's get into it. Okay, here I filled in for this validation and the upper validation, which is actually similar to what we did here when we were working with this, and when we were working with these three boxes and also these three boxes, which means like from the up coming down like this. Now, okay, one thing that we need to really do here right now is that we need to check for the, let me say, how can I call this? Mm, we need to check for all these sided, like suppose here is going to be B7, so to speak, box 7, and here is going to be box 5, and here is going to be box 3, something like that. So we need to check like if all of these boxes align with each other, filled with X, so to speak, then we have to say X1 and similarly apply to this. So let's come down here and say else if, okay, suppose we are checking for this box here, right? So we're going to say if B3 is equal to X, okay, or B3 is equal to big X like that, and because now if we're checking B3, then we'll check B5 and we'll check B7, so to speak. Okay, then here we'll come down and say and B5, right? B5 is equal to X like this, or B5 is equal to big X, so to speak. Then again, now we're checking for B7, we'll say B7 is equal to X, and again B7 is equal to X like that, right? Yeah, we have something to complete here. So that is that. Now on checking like this, we are also going to go through the same thing where we're going to say document dot get element by ID, and as we all know, our ID is known as print in order to print that specific message. And now we'll say inner HTML is equal to, here we are saying player x1, okay, we're going to say player x1, and yeah, that is actually it. And here we stop here, and now we'll say, because we are going to disable those buttons which are actually not involved in that, so we are going to say like there. So now we need to point out for those buttons which are involved there, like button 3, button, yeah, like button 3, button 5, and button 7, like button 3, suppose, yeah. Then we'll change the color of those buttons, like we're going to say dot style, okay, dot color is equal to, we just change it to red, okay. Then here we have button 5 involved and we have button 7 involved, and now all of them are going to change color to red, so to speak. So yeah, that is actually it for the, let me say, right-sided or right horizontal, so to speak. I don't even know what to say this. So yeah, then after this we'll also say else if. Now we are checking from button 1, okay, which is actually going to be box 1. First of all, let me say box 1 is equal to x. And if you really understand what I'm doing, because this is actually the box 1, we are going to check box 1 here and box 5 at the same time, and we are going to check box 9, which means if box 1 is equal to x, or box 1 is equal to big X, so to speak, like that, and box 5 is equal to x. This thing telling me why, seriously? Okay, or is equal to big X, like that, and box 9 instead of box 5 7, so to speak, we're going to say box 9. Good suggestion, by the way, though. Is equal to that and that, and yeah, that is actually it. Now after this, really taking much time here, let me just fill this in. Yeah, this is this, and with this now we have everything under control for our validation, so to speak. But this is not all. To be sincere, this is not all, because despite putting all of this thing in this position, still we have questions, so to speak. Now, is this all really? One thing that, okay, box 4, 1 2 3 4, box 4, box 5, and box 6. Yeah, yeah. Okay, now let's check the last one, where we are going to say else if. And this, actually we are checking this one. We have box 4, box 5, and box 6. Okay, so this is the entirety of it. Now here we checked for 4, 5, and 6 altogether, and we disable the other whatever. So this is it. So now we need to go a little bit deeper and try to look into O, because if we can really see how tic-tac-toe works, it works in a fashion where, like, when you click on this, it will maybe give you X, and if you click on this, it will maybe give you 0. Then, and you click here, just like the indication, we have player 0 and we have player X, you see, and these both players are going to play consecutively, like one person will play X and the other person will play O, and that is exactly how tic-tac-toe works. But you know, in checking of O, we are actually going to repeat the same procedure like what we did for X. That's why, like, I'm just going to code it, and then after this I'll walk you through it if it is really necessary. So let's get into it. Okay, here is actually I just continued with it like else if, and I wrote the whatever here, and if we can really see it, it is just a repetition of the same thing that we did earlier, you know. After this, setting the, let me say, getting the element by ID and setting it to this print ID here, which actually I showed you already, and it is going to display a text down here when that exact thing happened. And then after this, like changing all the styles, let me say the color of those buttons to red, the buttons which are actually involved on the winning part or maybe whatever happens there. So yeah, that is it. And if we can really go through it, it is entirely the same thing like what we just did above with X. So that's why I really didn't see a reason of repeating the entire thing, so to speak. So yeah, that is it. And for the code base, I'm just going to leave the link in description below. You can just check it and get the code from my GitHub. Everything is going to be there. You'll not even miss one of the things from here. So yeah, this is it. And yeah, now we have to go forward and try to like check, okay, check which player finishes in case, okay, in case no one wins but there's finishing, so to speak, checking of player zero finish. And here like we're going to focus entirely which player finishes, and as usual we're going to start with X, then after this we'll see X and zero, so to speak. So here we are checking about ties, okay, because it is in tic-tac-toe, it is not always that all the players are going to win, or maybe one player is going to win or something of that kind. Yeah, winning is also actually there, but sometimes you can actually have a tie where like both players played but no one won, like there's no winner, so to speak, and that is called tie. And in order for us like to make this game really interesting, we need to have that functionality in place. So let's say we're checking for tie here, checking for tie, checking for situation where like no one wins, okay, the other one plays his best and the other one plays his best, and all of them are there, like no one loses, no one wins, tie, so to speak. So yeah, let's say else if we're giving it like a certain piece of condition, if b1, which actually represent box 1, is equal to x, okay, or b1 equals to or, like that, and that applies to all of them. So yeah, that is that. And now we're just going to select a document, okay, like we're going to say document, not get element by id, and it is actually the same, we're using the print id, so to speak, and all we're going to say is the match is tied, okay, the match is tied, no one wins, no one loses, and that is in title of what we actually mean by tie. Yeah, that is that. And now with this, we are just going to say, okay, if that is the case, then what? Then we are going to say else, okay, if, okay, else if flag, okay, is equal to, I'll explain it in detail just within some few moments. Just give me a time, give me a time, okay. We'll say document, okay, which is this, then we'll say player x1, okay, I get a player x turn. Like one thing that really we need to understand about this flag is that it is actually indicating the flip between the players, because as I illustrated earlier, when it comes to tic-tac-toe, like if you click here and you are playing as X, so to speak, then the other person which is going to click here is going to play as O, or whatever alphabet, or maybe whatever character you gave. You see, the thing is like it is playing consecutively, and based on how you place let me say your figures and which kind of boxes you place it in, then it will determine if your selection of boxes are right, then it will say you're a winner. Otherwise you're a loser, so to speak, or otherwise you are tied with the other person, and that is actually the major entirety of what we are actually working on right now. So yeah, that is that. And here we're going to say else, because here we are actually trying to check. Okay, here we are trying to check if the flag is equal to 1, then which means it is X's turn to play. But if the flag is equal to maybe 0, so to speak, it is Zero's turn to play. So that is exactly what we actually wanted to just point out here. I keep putting shift, so to speak. It just turns everything creepy. Yeah, that is that. And now with this, like based on the flag, then we can now identify exactly what is what. Now we are going to just get out of that entire function. So which means we are kind of like stopping with that first function. Now we are going to create another function, and this function majorly is going to help us in doing one thing. Okay, we can call it anything. You can call it reset function, whatever function that you want to call it. But when it comes to the case of this flag here, I know maybe still like you have your own doubts about this and everything, but we are going to create a function about it. Okay, and in that function I'm going to explain everything, how the flag work and everything. Then after this you will understand exactly why I actually put it in that exact position, so to speak. So yeah, now let's just get out of this function and let's do something different. Let's create a function that is actually going to work with our reset. But if we have to go back to our HTML here, we're going to see that with our reset here we have a id but which is representing button. Okay, and at the same time on click we have a function which is called my function, this underscore 2, my function underscore 2, which means if we are creating any function there, the function has to match my function underscore 2, and that is actually majorly what we are going to focus on. So let's get started. Function to reset game, so to speak, or reset function, you can call it anything. Reset function. Okay, reset function. And in this reset function we're just going to say my function is like this, and we need to just say to like this. Now we can say location, okay, dot reload, like that, and that will help our game to reload. Then all we are going to do is that we start from box 1 equal to box 2 equal to box 3 equal to box 4, box 5, box 6, box 7, not 8, equal to box 9. Look at me, box 9. Okay, then box 9 is just going to equal to empty string, and actually that represent the entirety of all the other boxes that we actually use. And now with this, like we can be able to use this function in order to reset the entirety of what is going to be here. Okay, what is going to be here when we click on one and it write x, y, or anything. Whenever we click here, then all the boxes are going to be cleared immediately based on this functionality that we added here. It seemed like something simple, but yeah, that is it. So yeah, I was talking about flag earlier, so let's come down and try to write the functionality for the switch so that like it can give a turn between one player and another. So first of all, we are going to say, let me say switch between players. Let's just give it a comment called switch between players. Switch between players. Between players. Okay. Then here we are going to say flag is equal to 1. Okay, which is by default. Like by default we're just going to set it to 1. Then after this we need to create a function, And this function, based on my styling and everything that I did there, is going to be called function 3. Okay, actually we're going to have a lot of functions. That's why like I'm naming them in way like function 1, function 2, function 3, so to speak. I know it is funny, but you can actually change everything and write it the way you want in order to sound a little bit like meaningful, so to speak. Here we're just going to give if condition, like if the flag is equal to 1, which actually we did the same earlier, like equal to 1, so to speak. We want something to happen, and what is that to happen? Like we need a document dot get element by id, which our element that we are going to select is going to be like box 1, so to speak. Dot, we're going to change the value of that specific box to be x, so to speak. Okay, like if it is equal to 1, then let's say x is the one which actually strike that specific box, so to speak. Then again we'll say document dot get element, okay, by id, and we'll select the same, which is b1. Okay, then we'll say dot disable is true. Like, you know what actually we are focusing on right now is this. Okay, what we are focusing on right now is this. Let me just try to explain here. Like suppose you hit a box, right? Then you set a value x to that specific box when you hit it, or maybe you set a value 0 to that specific box. You don't need someone who is going to hit that box again, or if you repeat hitting it again, like suppose you hit here and it write x here, you don't need to repeat it again with another strike from player O, and you expect it also to display O here. That doesn't completely make sense, and that is why like here we actually disable the entire box. Once we have written something inside it, then we disable it so that you cannot like be able to write anything in that box. Then after that we did that, we are going to set the flag. Okay, we are going to set the flag to 0, and by setting the flag to 0 now, it gives ability to the second box that we are going to click is going to use the value 0 instead of using the value 1 of the flag that actually we have, you see. So now let's say else, okay, the document dot get element, so to speak, by id, and we are also going to write for the same here, value is equal to 0, so to speak, or this one, yep, like that. Then we are also going to do the same thing, like try to disable it. We don't want to get ourselves into trouble, and we just disable it, you see. Here we also set the disable to true. Oh, which kind of English is that? Then after this, immediately from here we set the flag to 1. And this will enable like the alternation, so to speak. Like we can be alternating from one to another, one to one, and that actually makes the game a game, so to speak. Okay, this is it about our flag functionality, like the switch between one player to another, and yeah, that is actually how the functionality is all about. So now we need to like continue with this functionality for all the other, like this actually here we only write it for box 1, which is actually here, but we have box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, all the other boxes which are there. We need to include all these boxes in this same functionality. So in order to do that, we need to write functionality to each of them one by one, so to speak. Remember, we are dealing with HTML and JavaScript, CSS here. So yeah, just get used to the situation, so to speak. Yeah, so let's go. Yeah, now this is how our switch functionality actually looks like. This is the first one we wrote together, and I added this, which is actually for box 2, and here we have box 3, and here we have box 4, and here we have box 5. It is actually, it is literally actually using the same convention, so to speak. Like we have the same way of dealing with things and everything, the same thing that actually I showed you the time we worked on box 1 together. it is the same thing that the entire convention is following. And if you really follow everything, that is just it, you know. And yeah, with this, I think it has brought us to the end of our functionality for this tic-tac-toe. And let's first try our game and see how it actually react or how it actually works. Now, if we click here, it is going to write X, and now we have a text here which is telling us player O's turn. And now if we click here, it is telling us O, and here it is telling us X, here is telling us O, here is telling us X, here is telling us O. It's just going, you know, like here, X, all the X's now here it says player X1, you know. Now the functionality is working so well, you know. With this, like you can see the entirety of how this tic-tac-toe game is working. And this is actually how the tic-tac-toe game is working in real life in many ways. And yeah, looking into this game, and I'm quite sure like throughout this game, despite the repetition and many things that you have been through, you will learn something better and understand at least what you actually wanted to do entirely with JavaScript. And yeah, that is it, and this is the functionality of our game. And as I illustrated earlier, I'm going to put all the codes of this specific game in my GitHub repository, and I will leave it public. You will just have a free access to it and be able to clone it, play around with it, and see exactly where and which one you want to really adjust it. Yeah. And if there's anything that you don't understand or there's some suggestion that you think we shall focus on, then you just write it down in the comment below, and I'll be ready and always there to reply and to be able to like give you the feedback that you really need, you know. This is the game here. Now you have your game working, everything in place, reset button resetting, and everything is working. So yeah, this is the functionality that we have been waiting for.